Hello all, welcome back to this series where we are talking about how you consume an API in Business Central. So we'll continue where we left, and without wasting further time, let's get into it. But as I say every time, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It helps us to understand how we are doing. I would humbly request that if you haven't seen the part 1, you would see a notification or a pop-up banner, I hope somewhere here, or it'll be in the pinned comment. All the videos in this series, the links will be available in the pinned comment. I would suggest going from the beginning so that I don't have to repeat it. But just a quick recap before we start moving. So we created a table, we created a page, and then we wrote some code to get records from this dummy sample REST API, and there is an add, okay, using this particular endpoint, right? And this endpoint, whenever it's called, responds us with this kind of output. So let's do a get record and let's see what comes up. So this is where we left. Now in today's video, we'll try to read this data, format it, and then create those records into this table. Okay. So before we get into it, let's quickly understand what this format is. Now this is a JSON format, which is the name value pair combination. So this is the name and this is the value against that name. Pretty simple. In the same way, this is the name and this becomes the value. This is an object in JSON. There is a JSON representation of object. It starts with this and ends with this. If you have to make a complex data type where you are returning multiple values, then you create an array in JSON, and that is represented by this bracket. So the data is an array, and then inside that array there are multiple objects. Each object uniquely identify a employee in this case, and again inside that there is name value pair combination. The values within an object name value pair are separated with commas. If there are multiple values, they'll always separate themselves with commas. So if you come down here, you'll notice at the end the array will get closed, and that completes the data array, and then there is another name value combination which is message, and then this closes the object. This is a small kind of an intro about it, about the JSON object, and this is what we'll be decrypting in our AL code. Okay, so without wasting further time, let's get into our code. Okay, let me see where my repo is, and it's good to zoom this in so that you guys can see it while I'm doing it. Okay, so yesterday we did this. We just made a request. We said we want to get from this endpoint, and once we did the send, we checked that the response is success or not, and then based on the response we read it into a text variable, and then we messaged it out. If there's an error, it responds with an error, whatever the error is. Now today we would like to parse that response, so let's create another method here to parse the JSON response that we are getting. Okay, so let me get on my keyboard and let's start typing. So let's create a procedure. Okay, super fast with new keyboard it seems. Okay, and I would say parse response. Okay, parse employee response. Okay, in this we'll take this out string which is coming from the response as parameter, so we'll get this as a response, and then we'll try to decrypt it. Now to read a JSON object, there are different kind of data types that are available within Business Central. Let's see what those are. So let's do JSON and see what data types are there. There's a JSON object, there's a JSON array that we saw in the file itself. So the JSON object is a representation of an object, and array is a representation of a JSON array. So the first thing that we are getting in the response that you're getting from it is a JSON object. So first, let's try to create a JSON object, which is, let's say, employee JSON, JSON, and that becomes my JSON object. So let's see what's available with the JSON object. I can do the employee JSON dot okay, because right now it's empty. Somehow I should have a read. So if you look at it, there is a read from, and then there are two overloads for it. So let's do a read from. Let's open the bracket. The first one says that a JSON object can read the object from a text, or it can read it from an in stream. So either if you have it on the stream or in the text file, you can use any of those. In our case, we have it in output string. So we'll just place this in here so that this is able to read it. Okay. So now logically, the object is now filled in as whatever the output is coming, which we saw here. So now let's go ahead and try to find the object. So when you look at this, you get an status as a name value pair combination, but your actual response is part of the data, which is multiple employees in this case, right? So let's, if you want to do a test of the status, let's do that first. So what you can do here is, now JSON object is like a simple object. So what you can do is you can say if employee.json.get, and the get has something. So let's see what get have. Get says I need a key, and then I'll give you result in a JSON token. So we were talking about the token, or we saw the token there. So when you do a get, you just need to identify what key you are looking for in that particular JSON object. And if that is found, the value is stored into the JSON token. So we know what our key would be in this case, which is status. So you can just say, okay, try to get the status, and then give me the response as it said into the status JSON token. So let me create a status JSON token, which becomes my JSON token. Okay. So I can just pick this and place it here. When this is called, and because the get returns you a boolean, I can append it with the if. So I'll get the token. If the status is not there, I'll know it because the get will return false. But if it is written, then what I want to do is, then I want to check what is in the response that I receive, which is status JSON token. So let's see what's there. Status JSON token, you can convert that token that you are receiving into either into an array, an object, as value, and other things. I just need to get a value, but what kind of value is, you can again define a dot and convert that value into different data types that you have in Business Central. Most of them are available here, so I'll convert it to text. Now this value will be returned, and if this value is not equal to whatever my success code is, which is success, then I don't have to do anything, right? If it is not equal to success, then exit. So, or an error if you want, right? So I'm just limiting it that if it is not success, then I don't want to move further into it. But if it is success, then what I want to do is, my special focus is actually on the data. What I'm looking at is to get the data. So I'll do again the same thing. If employee JSON dot get, and then I'll do data, and it's a little bit smarter. So for the time being, I'll just disable this. Okay, for the time being. Okay. So here I'm trying to read the data from it, and then it'll return it into a employee token, or let's make it as employee token. Okay. So the get will return the values into the employee token, and then I can do the same way into the employee token. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do an employee token dot. Now I know for a fact that the API that is being exposed by an external entity will surely respect the format until a new version of API is released. And there is always debate why Microsoft is releasing version 1 and there are no changes into it. It's not extensible because the rule with the API is it that will respect the input and output formats till the newer version of API is not released. So you can't just make changes into the API request or response schema because it comes with a contract that will not change until a new version comes in. And that's a separate debate. If you want to talk about it, put a comment into the chat and we'll talk about it. So I know that I should be getting a array, right? So I can either decrypt it as an array or I can also do a test that is it an array. I can do both. So let's do a check before we start reading it. If it is an array, which it should be, because that's what I know from the API provider, that it'll be an array, then what I'll do is I'll parse that into an array, into a JSON array. So let's create a JSON array. Employees array, which becomes my JSON array. So what I'm getting right now is the array that is returned. So if it is an array, then I'm saying put employee array as whatever the employee token is returned dot as array. So at this point, my employee array is actually pointing to this whole set from line number 4 to line number 171. That's the closing of the array. So now I have all the employee records into this one single variable, which is employees array, which is a JSON array. Now somehow I need to loop in into each object inside this array and then do certain things as we do in Business Central, right? Simple, easy code. So if you're not aware about it, I'm pretty sure everybody have seen it. There is a for each loop. So what I can do is I can do a for each, and then I need to find a unique record in that or object in that array, which will be returned as a token. So I can say here, I already have an employee token. Okay. Let me change this to make it as employees token because it's multiple employees. And then let me create one more token and call it as employee token. So don't get confused. The employees token is representing the whole array, whereas the employee token is just one employee into it. So I'm saying for each employee token in the array, employee array, okay, all right, in employee array, what I want to do, I just want to run a loop. So I can just do a begin and an end. Okay, begin and an end. Now what will happen with this? It'll loop around each record or each object, and that object will be stored into the employee token, and then I can play with it as I want. So let's do this. All right. So now I'm looking at the employee object because this will be returning me the object. So this is employee JSON. I'll just create one more, and this time I'll call it as employee object. Okay, because I'll get right now this contains the employee token contains this, so I need to pick this and convert it into an object so that then I can do a direct get on all the fields that I would need. So now let's try that. Okay, once I get that, I'll utilize my new object, and I'll say that my new object is actually equal to whatever is coming into the token dot as object. So this line converts this particular token which is returned into an object. And we all know once you have the object, what you can do is you can just put a get statement. So just to test it out, let's do this very simply. We'll do a employee object dot get, and then in the get I need to specify the key. So just for the reference, let's use employee name. Okay, I'll get this surely into the single quotes, and then I'll get the value as token. So I'll have to create a value token. Do I need to? Let's see. I can use this if needed, but you can create a new one if needed. So let's say result token. Hopefully I don't have to create more. Okay, so whatever, if this node is found, and you should embed an if you're not sure about it, but I'm sure that this is found, this will generate the response of that value of employee name for this particular record into the result token. And then as we did earlier, once we get it, I can just simply put a message right now, okay, where I say that this is result token dot as value dot as employee name. So I can convert it to a text. So this message should show me all the employee name for each of the record that are there, right? So before we move further, let's test it out, right? So let me see, where is this? Yes, here it is. So let's let's run this. Okay, so as it gets published, it will be available here and we'll be able to test it out. And for the demo, I'll just keep this screen as separate so that we can see that the values are matching or not. I'll have to click it how many times? 24 times, but that's okay. I'm just trying to fetch the employee name from it. So if everything goes well, I should be seeing the names for each record. So what we did, we first parsed the record into a object, and let's see that. Let's click here, allow once. Okay. Oh, sorry, we did not update or call that function. Okay, so let's just pass this instead of generating message. This time I'm going to parse it based on whatever the string is. Okay, so let's publish it again. Okay, so while this is happening, let's understand what we did. We get this as text as a response. We loaded that text into a JSON object. Then the first thing that we did is we checked that what is the status, is it success or not. And once it was success, we went into the data and we got the data array, and then using the for each loop, we kind of moved for each record, and then the response that is received is again stored in an object, and then we're just trying to fetch the employee name and displaying it. So let's do this. Okay, so the first one is Tiger Nixon, which is good. The second one is whatever the second one is, right? And let's see what the last one is. Okay, Doris Wilder. So let's see. So as you can see, the for each loop is repeating for each of the record that's there. Okay, and this should be the last one, Doris Wilder. So we are able to read it without any problems. Okay, so let's go back to our code and let's continue doing this. Okay, so before I move into it, let me close my Teams. Okay, here. So now we know how to parse a response. We have the structure in place. So what I'll do is, just to store them for a while, I'll just create the right set of variables that I need. And let's look at an object while I'm creating the variables. Okay. So for this, I would require to store the ID somewhere. So what I'll do is ID becomes my primary key also from ABC perspective. So I'll say um, response ID, which is integer. Okay. And then the second one is response name. Okay. Which becomes a text, hopefully. Yeah. And then is salary, response salary. And the last but not least is response age. Those should become decimal, at least the salary, not the age. So I should be moving the response age from here to the integer one. So the response ID and the response age both are integer, the text and the decimal. And this is what all we need. So what we do now is, once we get this into the result token, instead of generating the message, I'll just store it into my variable. Okay. So here what I'll do is I'll say, okay, you get the value from the result token dot as value, and then I know this is text, so as text. Okay. I can reuse the same result token, because just to get the value from the get, and this time I actually should be passing the first one, which is ID here. Okay, and that becomes as integer. So you can kind of convert or pass the response as you need. You also have an option of big integer if needed. I'm just, for the demo purpose, I'm just using it as integer, and I paste it as response ID. Okay, let's do it one more time, hopefully. Okay, and the next one that I'm getting is my employee salary. Okay, so I'll say employee salary, and that salary will convert as not as text, it'll convert as decimal. Okay, am I representing it wrong? Decimal to text. Okay, this is not response name, this becomes my response salary. Okay, the only thing that is missing is the last thing, and you don't have to maintain the sequence, it just does a get based on the name value pair. These can be in any order. Okay, the last one is employee age, so I'll get that. I'll have to convert it as an integer and then assign it to response age. Okay, so this will return me everything. Now before I move into it, because it will be looping around the records, I should be able to do the response ID. And can I do clear at the same lines? I would love that if Microsoft can do this. I haven't tried it, but let's see. Does it allow me? Oh, it does. No, it doesn't. Okay. Hey, Microsoft, if you're watching this, I don't hope, but if you're watching this, like you have done on the variables, I like it to keep it clean. And if I can do multiple clears at one line, that'll be great. Okay. And then employee age. So the previous values are kind of cleared when I utilize this. So once I have all the values that I need, what I can do is I can call a function to write records in table. Okay, or in database, whatever you want to call it. Let's call it database. Okay, and I'll pass the response ID, which is my primary key in this case of my BC table, response name, response salary, and last but not least as response age. Okay, let's define this method, which is pretty straightforward BC method. And I would like to call these as vars, because I don't like to add more load into the function where I'm kind of utilizing this, and then I'll cut this so that it just looks cleaner here, and I do it here. Okay. Okay. Now my table is called demo table. So let's pick this name and create a variable here for that table. Okay. Demo table, and that will become my record demo table. All right. Now I surely would like to see that if response ID, which is my primary key, is equals to blank, then exit. Then I don't want to create the record because it's already there. If my demo table dot get of response ID, then also I don't want to move further because the record already exists and I don't like to overwrite this, right? Okay, I've done my basic checks, the primary key checks and all. Now super simple to do a demo table dot init, and like you do, right? Demo table dot insert true, hopefully. Okay, and then in the middle, let's assign values. Okay, demo table dot id, and as I said yesterday, I can do the validate if there's a validate code there, because these values are coming from an external system. It's mandatory. If there are table relations, you surely would like to check them, right, or call them. So demo table dot validate. Next is let's see what else the field is. Employee name, age, okay, response age, okay. Let's keep this copied, okay. Employee name is the response name, okay. And last but not least is employee salary is equal to response salary. Okay, so we're good with it, hopefully. And if everything goes well, all these 24 25 records which are there, they get into my business central table as I run this code. So let's run this. Okay, so right now what we did is we went around to the array on each record, and then we started reading these individual objects inside the array, fetch the value into the right data type by using the JSON token conversion process, and then we'll be trying to insert. Right now we are trying to insert these records into a BC table. So if everything goes well, the get record will just bring all that data into my business central. Oh, it's here. So now if you notice it, it just flattened that data as we wanted it, and it's here that your employee 1 is Tiger Nixon, employee age is 61 and 32860. Just do a random check, you will see all the records which are there are here. Even if you do a get record, nothing will change because we have already added a condition that if my primary key value is already existing, it'll not refetch it. So let's try that. Too many requests. Okay, so something went wrong. Let's figure that out. Okay, now at this point it said too many records or too many requests, and the beauty is now I can just do a copy error detail and with the latest versions of Business Central and just place it here in my object and see what's the detail is all about. All right, so it says while you are on your code unit on the get records, it's called causing the slowness. I'm in the get records, which then calls this, gets it, parse the response, which is good. It checks, is it found? If it gets a status, great. If it is not success, then exits. If it gets the data, it finds the array. It comes here, stores these values, goes into it, and because it is exiting from here, it is not resetting these, but that should not be the cause. I'll analyze that later. But in summary, because you are kind of getting these values up to date, you can just do it with the get call. All right, let me come back here. Maybe I was doing something else. So let's quickly try this again, and then I'll debug it if needed. Okay. Nothing changed because it's already processing. And that request error that we got is maybe because of the API endpoint, which we don't have any controls. So using that very simple code of understanding how you parse a JSON, you can call any endpoint, read the output that is coming from there into a text variable, then convert it into a JSON object. From JSON object, if there is an array available, you will have to parse that array, and then you will have to navigate or loop around that array to fetch each and every record. Hopefully that makes sense. I forgot to tell you yesterday, but all the source code that we are writing in this series will also be available into the GitHub as we complete the series, so you can always get access to that source code from there. Now you know the drill. If you have questions, add it into the comments. If you think this was useful, you learned something new, hit the like button. If you think one of your friend or colleague who is working on similar situation will either learn something or will help him or her, please do share this video with at least one of your colleague who is in Business Center. And as I said in the beginning, and I keep saying it, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. And one more thing. If you're watching this, I'm pretty sure you are following me on Instagram, because there is a BC quiz that's going on in Instagram where every day, morning and time, there is a new question about BC, which starts from very basics right now. We'll see how things goes on, and then at the end of the season 1, which may complete as we kind of complete one section of what these quizzes are comprising, we will have a leaderboard of how many people have answered correctly into the comment section. So if you are interested to learn more about BC, I'll see you on Instagram. Every day morning there will be a video or a question about Business Center. So till then, have a great day. I'll see you sooner than later. Till then, keep learning and keep sharing. Thank you. Have a nice day.